And we are live with Royce Lennox. How you
We're
doing, man?
live.
We are live.
All right. No time for editing.
Oh yeah, I don't do any of that. That's for sure. A
All right, I'm on the spot now.
little bit. Um, so a little bit of background on you, just to kind of catch everybody back up. You roughly got about 50 years, eh, in the trade?
Yeah, 50 plus actually.
Yeah, that's wild.
Between painting and taping, yeah.
Um, that's actually a good segue into it. I wanted to talk about painting a little bit, just a little bit. You mentioned on one of the other podcasts that you used to show up to a house with like pixels and you would make your own colors. Is that right?
Yeah. When I started painting, you didn't go to the paint store to get your tints. You had your tints with you. You had to match it up, and yeah, that was all future technology back then.
Oh yeah, yeah. I bet you that was something new, eh? That is so
Yeah, it
crazy.
was, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, I used to be able to just look at a wall. I knew what the tints were. I can't do it anymore, but I used to be able to just look. Okay, that's little this, little that, and you tweak it up, and yeah, it's amazing how close you could get.
I think Nick's brain probably works like that really well
Yeah.
with all the fresco stuff.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so when you started out, you were in Alberta.
Yes.
Um, did you join a union or did you
No,
kind of, no,
no,
no, no, no.
no. Not that I have a big problem with unions. I don't, but no, it wasn't a union thing. I was working with the guy, who contracted jobs, and yeah, it was a whole different world back then. We didn't have SIB or any of that stuff. You Yeah, and the way they taught people was a little bit violent compared to now. Now you'd be charged with assault the way you apprentice back then.
I I kind of was, I feel like like I just got the end of that type of teaching style and
Yeah,
you learn way better. it,
yeah,
it's
you
pretty
can't.
abusive, but
Yeah, you can learn quick, but it seems to be the animal that we are. Like, you don't
yeah,
seem to be able to coddle people into correctness.
no.
So yeah, I mean, I fixed a few holes in the wall that were put there by my head on my own time because I missed a spot or something like that, right? So
Oh, okay. I never got into that, but okay.
I got thrown off a scaffold, had to go to emergency, thought I broke my leg. Fortunately, I hadn't, but because I had the wrong color, and we meet, and he's gone, the guy I'm working with, he's come with one color, I meet him with another. It's like, what? So,
Holy shit.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
I was very fortunate because it wasn't like it wasn't violent. It was just like lots of screaming, lots of like you're gonna do this for free if it's wrong, that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah,
Years later in my career, my ass would still kind of pucker up. I'd look at something I did and went, "Holy shit, I missed whatever,"
yeah,
and I was almost waiting to hear about it. But I'm like,
yeah,
I haven't been around him for 6 years.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
it's
back in those days, if you were, just prior, like going to school and then out to the workforce, but back in those days, if you were going to have a fight after school, the teacher showed up, so
yeah.
a few of them anyhow. But so yeah, times have changed a lot. I mean, I remember when I was 9 years old, walking down the street in the city with my 22, heading off out into the field to hunt muskrats and beavers and ducks and stuff. No neighbor complained. Nobody phoned the cops. Nobody was concerned about it.
Just regular
Imagine,
shit. Yeah.
yeah, imagine a 9-year-old walking down the street with a powered rifle these days. Oh.
Yeah.
Of course, Alberta was a little more rednecky than every other place in Canada, still is, but
I was going to say one of my best friends lives out in Alberta, and that's exactly what we did the last time I was there. We just packed up his truck full of a bunch of shit and then drove
yeah,
out somewhere and pulled
yeah,
off to the side of the road and started shooting. Like,
yeah, yeah.
that would just not fly here at all.
No, sure wouldn't. No.
Um, so you kind of got into how back then things were still like not moderated but checked by the
Yeah,
banks, like there
they were
was quality
filthy.
control.
Yeah, the inspections that used to go on from the ground up. Yeah,
Hmm.
back in those days, 50 years ago, they actually used to inspect finishes. Finishes mattered. They used to inspect them. They had to be right.
Right.
You had to have your flats had to be so wide. Your bead had to be full. They'd put a level on your bead, make sure it was full. Stuff like that mattered. But that isn't looked at all anymore. It doesn't matter at all anymore. So, but it used to matter. So, yeah. So there was a more intense quality control back then. You had to
Hmm.
do your job very, very well. Like paper bead is still used largely all through Alberta. It's pretty well all paper bead, and I think to this day, I haven't been back there for 20 some years, but
Yeah.
um, when I left, anyhow, and I think it's the same. When a boarder threw up some drywall, and if your paper bead, because you have one side's longer and one side shorter than the other for the metal, and if that metal wasn't overlapping, if the board was back too far, the boarders come back on their own time and rehang that board to get it right. Like it has to be right.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons they don't use paper bead here, because it's just not as yeah, you just wouldn't have that kind of
You can't
precision.
you can't manipulate it. Yeah, like I've
Yeah.
used paper bead in the past with my framing, my board work, and
Mm.
it's an excellent product if everything is bang on.
Yeah.
But
Way
like
less mud.
if you're following what's there and it's got a big swerve in it, that's exactly
Yeah.
what the bead's going to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Or if the bead's back a bit, it's not going to catch the other side. Yeah. It's gonna.
Yeah, or it's just floating. Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Yeah.
uh, have you gotten into much trim tech stuff? Like,
Well, trim truck products are awesome. Yeah. No, I've used them a lot. Yes. One of one of my favorite beads with them is the tearaway, because you can create
same.
such an awesome reveal up against a cupboard. Like we've done a few houses where we actually put the tearaway all the way around the cupboards, but we take the tearaway off first, put it onto the cupboard itself, so the bead butts up to the tearaway you've already taken off onto the cupboard. So when you
Right.
finish coating out your bead, and then you take out the tearaway in between your cupboard and your bead, it looks like the cupboard's slightly recessed into the wall. It has like a 16th of an inch reveal all the way around the cupboard. It's this beautiful effect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
That little bit of depth that you can get from using the beads properly is really attractive. And when it's
yeah,
done correctly, it's like just so
that's been
excellent.
that's been an amazing company to watch grow too. Because I remember when they, came out with a few beads to start with, and now it's like a catalog of different beads and effects you can create with their stuff. Yeah, it's an amazing company, amazing product for sure.
Yeah, I've just started kind of back and forthing with them. I just did the fast edge. I'm going to do a video about that when I have some time, and not the fast edge, the fast cap. And I loved that. It was easy peasy. I'd used it before, but not all the way around. I've used it just to block in the end of a wall kind of thing. But meeting all three together, it was
Yeah,
super easy.
yeah. If you do really, yeah, you gotta if you yeah, you could do a lot of beautiful stuff with it. In Alberta, it's very common, the rounded bead, for
Hmm.
the here it's not people don't use it near as much, but in Alberta it's used a lot. It's a preferred look there. And it is nice. I think it's very nice. It's great for kids, not banging their heads in the corner.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like the effect of it myself, but it's just not as popular in Ontario. I don't know the difference, but
Albuquerque and like New Mexico, all the places down there, that's all they have. It seems like it's all
yeah,
texture and bullnose, and
yeah.
it's really attractive. Like I really like it. I don't think it's as simple as regular bead though. Like when you're trying to match them together, I would imagine that's a little bit of a
Yeah.
pain in the ass to get perfect.
Yeah, you got to really pay attention. And when you're sanding it, you have to really pay attention. The round bead looks really awesome if you're so careful when you sand that, because if you over sand it at all, you're putting a little edge in that you can see around the edge of your bead. But so
Right.
you have to sand it like so gently around those edges, and make sure that the whole rounded part is cleaned right off, and then it's very nice. But yeah, you got to
Yeah.
be very careful with it.
'Cause they've got that rounded part and then like a high edge, kind of where your knife goes. Yeah. So when you expose that, it kind of throws the whole thing off. Yeah.
Yeah, if you push hard, yeah. So you have to have it very squared on everything. I found the vinyl bead that they use, Trimtex uses, is way better than the metal. The metal dents easy. The when you've installed the vinyl bead nicely, properly, you can hit that stuff, pretty hard. You're not cracking it. Like it's really good stuff. Really good bead.
Yeah, I've seen the videos where they'll hit it and the bead itself won't absorb it, but the legs will pop the mud off of it. Like the reverberation will affect the mud that's put into the bead, and then you
Yeah,
just cover it up again and everything's fine. You
yeah,
do that with a metal bead, you're cutting the whole thing out.
yeah. You want the whole thing. But even with the vinyl, if you use glue on that,
Mhm.
you're not even going to likely pop that. It can, but you'd have to hit it pretty hard. But no, it's really good.
Oh yeah, like I mean, like with a hammer, like they were doing it on purpose. I've never had anything happen, and I've bounced my pack outs off of one. I won't say which site it was, but and we never had any problem. But I was shocked because
Yeah.
I hit it pretty good. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Have you done much fresco harmony work?
I haven't done a lot of it, but I sure love the product.
Me
But
too.
I haven't. I'm so focused on doing the ceiling work that I do, the ceilings. I haven't had a lot of time to try to promote it. But yeah, the first time I saw that with Nick there at the show, it was like, yeah, I spent almost as much time at his booth as our own because I just really enjoyed that product. When as soon as I saw it, I thought, wow, yeah, that's a whole industry right there. A guy could build a business just out of that.
D-
And Nick's a great guy too. Like he's easy to talk to. He's well experienced in what he's talking about. And yeah, I know it's easy with that product to want to get really creative and do all this wild stuff. That's great in your own home, but
mhm.
that's not a great mass produced type of product. It's very
No.
specific.
Yeah.
But just to use it the way he says to use it in the for going from home to home kind of thing is he's got that figured out. It's very good.
Yeah, I really like the look of these bathrooms where the entire bathroom ceiling and all the walls are done
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
color, and it looks sharp.
It sure does. Yeah, I was surprised how good it actually looked on the ceiling itself as well. It was like, yeah, that's,
Hmm.
that's really fair. And I was impressed too with the way that that's sealed up. We're using that compound, the whatever it is that you're troweling. It just spread so far, seals so well. Yeah, it was fun stuff. And apparently, if you do that twice in a bathroom, it's even adequate for moisture resistance and stuff in a bathroom. So
So that sealer that he gives you with the sample pack,
yeah,
Foz used the entire thing. So I think it might have been 3 coats. It for sure was two on his backsplash, and he was splashing water onto it, and it was
yeah,
beating up. Like
yeah, yeah,
it worked.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if you would have to reapply every once in a while, like if you're cleaning over and over again, but it's definitely water resistant.
Yeah, well, you might have to over another year or so. It's just like stonework. I mean, you need to reseal
Mhm.
that every year, right? But yeah, who knows? Nick would know.
Oh yeah, yeah. The nice thing about Nick is when you call him, you're on the phone for an hour, and then you're like, "Well, how did we do that?" Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, you want to talk about the three-way a little bit?
Well, there's just so much to say about that three-way.
I know.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about um, when you were developing it, like when you kind of like wrapped your head around it was something that you wanted to do.
Well, you know what inspired that was I had a second cousin on the job, a young guy, and he just wasn't very useful.
Hmm.
It was very difficult to find any use for him. He just wasn't suited to what we were doing. But I didn't want to just toss him. I wanted to figure out if I could find a way to make him useful. I thought if we could just fold up some stuff that we could, paper the way and put that in the three-way. I wasn't thinking that it would be like replace doing three-ways at that time, but that it would give a guideline that was just so much quicker and easy for the guys to follow. Because three-ways are about average 25% of your labor in your average house. So it worked well enough. Just folding up certain paper I found would work.
Brilliant.
Um, just to do it like that. And then it was Steve, after I'd been using it for a few years, I ended up using it like all the time. And then Steve came along and says, "Why aren't we marketing this? Why haven't you brought this to market?" Well, at that time, I'm from old school more, so it was like it's all our trade secrets. We're trying to protect them all.
Yeah.
And Steve, telling me like, "We're in a different day and age here. You don't. We're not. We're not keeping our secrets. We're letting them out. That's how
Hmm.
things let things flow. Like we got to get this thing out there and help other tapers and show other tapers the benefits of this." So that's when we came up with a more professional product with the 2 layers of paper, one thicker,
Hmm.
so you could create a bevel around the edge. You just skim that edge, and it's got the perforations to help bond, and you don't have to pre-fill, and all kinds of benefits to that 3-way. So that's what ended up developing as it is. So we've been a couple of years or more, 3 years or something like that into that now. And more people are starting to use that full time and finding it a very useful thing. Everything has a learning curve. And even I was surprised when we finally got a professional 3-way. I was surprised. I figured, well, I've been taping 50 years. What do I got to learn? Throw it
Hmm.
in. But I was surprised after throwing 50 to 100 of those 3-ways. I was down to putting in that 3-way from install to ready to paint in 1 minute's time.
Yeah.
And that's when it really hit me like, okay, so this is this can be used way beyond just helping me have a bit of an edge on the market. So
Yeah. This basement that I just did, I filmed them all, but I mean,
yeah,
obviously I'm going to pick the best ones and make that
yeah,
video. But I did install, and then I came back a little bit of a sand second coat, and then I
yeah,
came back a little bit of a sand. And I mean, like the video is probably going to be fucking 40 seconds,
yeah,
and
exactly.
that's the amount of time that it took to get it in install
Yeah,
ready for paint. That's a little crazy.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's surprising. You have to have, it's not intuitive really, because there's so many things about it you don't really think of, even as a taper. Like how much faster you run your bazooka or throw your tapes or
Hmm.
anything else when you have 4 inches of play. To be precise, more like 4 3/4 inches play that you have to tear off that tape. So you don't have to spend time with any precision as to how you end that tape in your 3-way. Saves times there, saves time sanding, saves times rolling
Yeah,
a fleshing. And it saves time, like if you have an apprentice, you now have something
totally.
you can do that only you could do before effectively, and now you can compound that time into coating your bead, doing your butts, and everything else. So there's a lot of benefits to using it, for sure.
Yeah, I think
So I
so.
was discovering that.
Another thing that I did this time was I ran my angle head, and I basically with that second coat, you've got a band of like 2 or 3 inches. And then right at the tip of where the corner is on the 3-way, that's where I placed the angle head and drag.
Yeah,
And it was perfect. I
yeah,
No tearing, no movement, no nothing.
yeah. I saw that video. It was a good video. Yeah,
Yeah, I was always super hesitant to do that because it was like regular tape cuts. Well, not all the time, but it does. So then trying to do that with the 3-way, I'm like, man, when I cut this, I'm gonna have to replace this thing. And it was
yeah,
fine. I
yeah,
think you just need to take your time in the places where you need to take your time. It's just the way that it is. Things are going to be fast, but you can't just be like jerking and fighting around. You have to get good at doing it, and that's what makes it fast.
yeah. It takes 50 to 100 3-ways. You
Hmm.
have down to a minute's time. You can't beat that. My son, he started using it. Well, I got a few sons in drywall, but one of
Hmm.
my well, they all use it. But one of my sons, just the other day, throwing one in, and then his helper comes along and he's doing them out, and he ends up coating out that whole 3-way, like put the mud, and he's like, "What the heck? How is it not obvious that you don't have to go right inside of that whole 3-way with mud? Just do those edges."
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I guess people don't realize that paper's paint ready.
That is the whole thing. And same with no coat, right? I think that paper is paint ready too. But I think everybody is so caught up on you've got to coat everything with mud and make everything white. You just
Yeah,
have to understand the product. That's what I'm so excited about this next event on the 19th is just a lot of people have used them now, and there's been a lot of positive feedback.
yeah,
But I want everyone to kind of see exactly how to use it properly, and I think they're all going to go, oh, Like it's even better, faster, easier than we thought.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, the base of people using it is certainly growing every day. So,
Hmm.
that's good. It's great that more guys are getting help from it than, you know.
Totally. And I've had some like what I would consider to be top tier guys take a look at them. And, even the positives and the negatives that are coming back, there are always the positives of like Curtis, for instance, had like a blowout. It's like a 3-inch blowout in the corner. And he was like, you know what? I'm just going to cake it with mud and throw a 3-way in it. And it was fine. And he was
Yeah,
shocked
yeah,
because you just wouldn't think that it would work.
yeah,
At very little, everybody should have some in their pack. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because there are reasons to do it.
yeah. There's
Um,
Yeah, they're useful to everybody in certain places. Some guys you can use them all the time.
mhm.
Some guys just use them for some of their three ways, the bad blowouts or whatever. But it's all good. It's another tool in your pack. You know.
Totally. That's exactly the way that I look at it.
Yeah,
Um, you know, the I've got specific tools that I don't touch hardly ever, but then when I need them, they're there and I use them then. I really did enjoy doing all the 3-ways in this basement though, because I don't want to say sloppy with the auto taper, but you're not like holding your breath, wondering where you're going to land the tape, and oh my god, did the back drag? And because it doesn't matter,
yeah,
if you're 2 inches out either way, it was perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, and they all went in nice. The framing in this job was just terrible. It was just
yeah,
terrible for the insulation that they wanted. The guy just added two twisted up 2x2s to the outside of the 2x4s to add space. So it was fucked. Like some of the butt joints are like 4 feet, the whole board. Like it's just so bad.
yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not trying to insult anybody or anything, but for some reason, every like I do a lot of ceilings, popcorn removal, and trowel out all the ceiling and smooth them all out, and repaint the place and all that. I like doing that because it's fast in and out type of work. And
Mhm.
I work with Mr. Skimcoat on that, and he's a great guy to work with for doing it. He's got endless work, to do kind of thing. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, it's almost every time there's someone else has worked in there. It's frustrating that so many times half my work or a lot of my work is repairing what other people did in there. It's like,
Yeah.
it'd be nice if there was a better standard, like a set standard of how you do things. Almost every ceiling that I'm doing, I am tearing out a certain amount of butt joints and redoing them. I just use five. I like using five because it sets up so quick. I use five and fiberfuse, and I just replace a lot of butt joints so they're
Mhm.
not cracking after I've coated out an entire ceiling. So,
Yeah,
but
you
yeah,
did.
there is a lot of poor workmanship out there for sure.
Well, and I think there's not been a lot of good teachers. I think, going back to the way that I was taught, you've got some dickhead yelling at you all the time. He's very good at his job, but it's like when he has a bad day, you have a really bad day. And I think some people just didn't have the guts for that. So they learned a little bit, enough to like get out on their own. And that's all they've ever learned.
Yeah, it
So
seems like the supply and demand thing, right? I mean,
yeah,
everything has boomed so intensely that nobody's, where's your 4-year inspecting every stage of what you do, getting
yeah,
notes from your supervisors affirming that you could do this, like people just go in and the guy works for 6 months, and if he can sell himself to somebody on a job site that he knows what he's doing, he's in
yeah.
there.
He's off to the races. Now he's his own journeyman after 6 months.
Yeah, and you go in and you see cracked beads and pop nails and everything all over the place. So
Well, then the place I was going with that is these guys that went and did that just kind of jumped the gun and got some work, and they've kind of been making it along. It's not good, but it's passable. They're now teaching guys, and
yeah,
then
how to
those guys are a
do.
fucking nightmare because
Yeah,
they don't even know what they're doing because this guy didn't know.
yeah,
So yeah, it's everything I ever got good at. I found somebody that I've considered to be top tier, and I just shut up and listened. And I skipped over that with taping because there was nobody around.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
figured out how to hand tape on my own, and I figured out the, knives and stuff and sanding, and I hated it. And then I got back into it with the auto tools. So I kind of skipped over all that fundamental stuff.
Mm.
So now that I'm learning all of that, it's like these are like weapons in an arsenal that I was missing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
As a taper, as far as taping goes, like one of the things you learn a lot from is sanding.
Yes.
Sanding really shows you so much of what to do, what not to do. So one of my sons that I taught how to tape, I had him sand most, like all kinds of people's work, his own work, everybody's work. He sanded for a couple of years,
Perfect.
mostly sanded. And when he got on the hawk and trawl, I had him run his trawl backwards for 1 year before
Oh,
before he flipped it around the other way.
yeah.
Because that trawl is so useful to turn around the other way when you're loading bulkheads and stuff like that. If you flip it around the other way, you have way more control. But
Right.
it takes a little bit of practice. But there's so many times when it works to flip your trowel one way or the other. So he's quite an amazing taper, Daniel. He's the one who did the videotape with the samurai sword,
Yeah, I
the
saw that.
black belt Japanese jujitsu guy, Daniel.
Um, he was working at the last house that I was working on for like a
Oh,
week. So yeah, I
yeah.
was able to shake his hand. He's an interesting fella. I like him.
Yeah, yeah, Daniel is. He's an excellent instructor because he spent so much time teaching kids martial arts. He's
Right.
years he's worked with kids teaching, so he's good at being able to describe detail and that. He can,
Patience.
yeah, he can get into a lot of detail. So
That's good. That's a good time to take a break. We've got about 3 minutes left. We'll be right back.